Welcome to the Luxury Travel Innovators Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Deflorian, founder and CEO of AZDS. Let's take off. I'm excited to share my conversation with Greg Kennealey today, our first official in-studio guest. Greg is the CEO of Peregrine Hospitality, which is made up of KSL Resorts and Mission Hill Hospitality. We talk about how the travel industry always bounces back despite uncertainty, as well as his crawl, walk, run approach when it comes to AI innovation. Greg, thank you so much for joining me on Luxury Travel Innovators. I greatly appreciate you coming over.
You're welcome. It's so nice to be here and good to see you.
Great to see you as well. Tell our listeners a little more about Peregrine Hospitality and how it came to be.
Sure thing. So Peregrine Hospitality is basically the reinvigoration, for lack of a better description, of a management company called KSL Resorts, which has existed out in Irvine, California, and managed large-scale hotels and resorts probably about the last 15 years. I was at the time the founder of Mission Hill Hospitality, which owned and oversaw 33 select service properties. We really felt that getting into the direct management of those hotels would be highly advantageous. And so in April of last year, I was named CEO of KSL Resorts while still running Mission Hill. We then began the process of taking over the Mission Hill properties, which we recently completed, and then excitingly rebranded the new organization, Peregrine Hospitality, just to kind of indicate a new vision, a fresh start, a broader team and capabilities. And now we're kind of all putting on the same jersey every morning when we go to work, which has been great.
I love it. How'd you guys come up with the name Peregrine? What was the thought process there?
Oh, geez. If you've ever gone through a naming exercise, it's really quite painful. It took the better part of 5 months. We got input from every employee, stakeholder, certain customers, and paid some marketers to help as well, and then ended up with the name that our very own VP of marketing suggested in the first place. So the Peregrine Falcon is the fastest animal in the world. It can actually reach speeds during prey dives of 240 miles an hour. So we liked the analogies to speed and agility and so forth. And so it also feels very Colorado. And so that worked for us, yeah.
You know, it's actually really funny too, because the timing of this interview could not have been more perfect. So recently we launched a new booking engine technology for the Glen Eagles up in Scotland. And
very cool.
They have an activity around falconry, of course. And so I took the team as a celebration of the launch on Wednesday down to the Broadmoor. And actually, we went to the whole falconry experience, and we learned all about peregrine falcons.
Perfect.
And so they have about 5 down there, and I had no idea that, number one, they were the fastest animal in the world, and also I had no idea that the way that they're able to dive rapidly it's remarkable.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. We actually did a falcon trip with, or a falcon activity, I should say, with my family on a trip, and it was one of the highlights. Like the kids absolutely loved it. It was, you see them come flying in, they land on your arm. Like it's pretty dramatic.
It's totally dramatic. And it was, it's one of those experiences that I never really thought about, but then I did it with Logan and Derek this week. And it was like, wow, it was really amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. So timing was very good. You mind telling our listeners a little bit more on your personal background? And, you came up in hospitality through asset management, spent some time with strategic. So you have a very robust and thorough understanding of the industry. What's your kind of personal background and love for hospitality?
Yeah, so I stumbled into hospitality, frankly, through serendipity, and I'm incredibly grateful and fortunate to have found my way here. So I was working in traditional real estate private equity, so office, multifamily, industrial, and through a relationship ended up meeting the CEO of Strategic Hotels and Resorts, which is a luxury hotel REIT, publicly traded at the time, based in Chicago. And it took me 6 months to get 20 minutes with their founder and CEO, Lawrence Geller, who's quite a character if you know him. Mm-hmm. And the meeting went fine. And at the end, I was like, well, if there was ever a chance to work here, I'd be really excited. And his response was, you don't know shit about hotels. But you seem like a nice kid. And so if our CEO will hire you, it's fine with me. And he walked me down the hall and introduced me to Richard Moreau, who ended up becoming my mentor and boss. And that was my start in hospitality. This was 2006. And so less than 2 years later, with a newborn, Strategic stock fell from $25 to roughly 62 cents. They laid off most of the corporate employees. I think they were paying me so little that I didn't move the needle, so I got to stay. But because everyone else was gone, all of a sudden I had real responsibility. And it's insane, but I was put in charge of their European portfolio despite having minimal hotel experience and no European experience. But anyway, learning curve, right? Necessity is the mother of invention, and kind of figured it out and kind of went from there. It was remarkable, but also so exciting because I finally was like, this is the best industry in the world. Like, it's just, the people are wonderful, the opportunities are great, and their portfolio was second to none at the time in the luxury space. And so we were working on some of the most iconic assets in North America and Europe, and it was just an incredible learning opportunity for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. It sounds like hospitality, right? It's people are oftentimes just thrown into it, but at the end of the day, it's such a robust industry, and everybody kind of falls in love with it because everybody loves to travel, right?
And nobody leaves, right?
Right.
I mean, you get into this space if you're fortunate enough to do it, and if, for those of you who are listening who aren't in it, please get in. You'll never regret it. But then nobody leaves because it's just too much fun. We get to go to amazing places. We get to try amazing experiences like falconry, and it's invigorating. And you make a difference in people's lives, both guests and employees, and that generates a real sense of satisfaction.
Totally. And then from a global perspective, I always find it fascinating how I've been doing this for 20 years with clients everywhere, and everybody's definition is different. But then at the end of the day, it's how you make a guest feel, right? It's the
100%.
experience that you create for that guest that really matters.
100%.
And I think that's what makes it so special is that it doesn't, you have language differences, you have cultural differences, but hospitality is a global language.
It absolutely is. And, coming up through the finance side, I'm more familiar with the science than the art.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see the art side of it done well, like, it's really special.
Totally.
And, you can have the highest thread count sheets or whatever, and you can have the nicest millwork in the room, but it can still fall flat. And then, or if you've ever been in a restaurant that's like beautifully designed, but just doesn't get the job done for some reason. And then you can go to a place where the owner just brings all their passion to it, and the engagement is different, and the experience is different, and the service is different. And all of a sudden you're like, that was amazing. I don't remember what it cost, but I remember that it was incredible, and I can't wait to go back.
100%. Yeah, it's funny. It's like on a few of the recordings that I've done earlier here in the year, I always say, especially in luxury hospitality, right? The room, the product, that's just the base. Like, you have to have that. That's first base. It's how you get that guest back, right? Is creating that special, memorable experience, whether it's through experiences like falconry, like we were just talking about, or whether that's just looking out for the little things and anticipating needs and treating people with empathy, So.
Yeah, and it's easy to say, it's incredibly hard to do. You see it done best oftentimes at small scale. And so one of the challenges in the industry, of course, is to try and find ways to replicate that and do it on a larger scale. And I don't know that anyone's perfectly solved it. I mean, some groups are better than others.
Totally. For our listeners that are hotel and resort ownership groups, how does Peregrine differentiate its approach to hotel management?
Yeah, I guess I would say several things here. First and foremost, I think it's the ownership mindset. So, and this plays out in a number of ways for us. So we're very fortunate. While our primary activity is operating hotels, the way that we're structured allows us to have an ownership stake in the hotels in which we operate, and sort of the economic incentives that are around that are all about the hotel real estate and how that performs. And so that creates, in my opinion, a big difference. It makes for better, faster decision making. It makes for greater alignment between investors and the people on the ground every day who are operating the hotel. I think, frankly, it makes us a more attractive employer, because it streamlines what's important, right? Take care of the guests, take care of the bottom line, and I think we've seen a lot of success in the last 12 months, frankly, because we've recruited a lot of people as we've grown, and we're very fortunate. The interest we've been getting for the various positions that we've been recruiting for has been pretty significant.
What was the sort of idea behind bringing together KSL Resorts and Mission Hill into one organization? Efficiency, or what was the driving factor there?
Yeah, so the original idea was that, the KSL Resorts and the broader KSL legacy has always been around operating very large, iconic hotels, battleship-sized resorts, if you will, like the Arizona Biltmores and the Hotel Dells and Grand Wailea in Hawaii. And what KSL did very, very well was they figured out how to maximize the profit of something so incredibly operationally complicated, right? These are resorts with 1,000 rooms and 2 golf courses and 30 treatment rooms and 9 restaurants and a membership business and whatever else. And they developed a really good playbook that maximized the value of every square foot of real estate, that drilled all the way into every revenue and every cost opportunity in every single individual business. And they did this, sort of back in the 90s and early 2000s, when that wasn't an everyday event. Like, that wasn't common in the sort of the hotel management playbook. And what we were finding is a simpler version of that playbook will work and create outsized returns and performance in smaller boxes. So we brought that to, over the last 6-7 years, we brought that to smaller boutique resorts.
Okay.
And more recently, we're bringing that, frankly, into the select service space, which is much more of a simple operation. But the levers you pull and how you pull them, and the culture and the prioritization and the way in which you approach talent recruitment and development all still pulls through. And so we're seeing it. What's really rewarding, you're seeing it across the spectrum of segments. And so we think that creates inherent opportunity for us.
You mind sharing with us just how that, the relationship works in general with KSL Capital? So you obviously operate a fair number of assets for them, but then they also have Outrigger and other, groups that they just have independently, right? So
Totally. Yeah. So KSL Capital is defined as a travel and leisure fund, sort of a sector-focused private equity firm. I had the privilege and pleasure of working there from 2011 till 2021. Actually went there from strategic. And during that time, they've grown substantially. So they invest now across North America, small bit in South America, very, very prevalent in Western Europe, and even some assets in the Asia Pacific region. And so we are one of their many partners or portfolio companies. Like Outrigger would be an example of that. And so while we have our own portfolio of hotels that we are sort of maniacally focused on, we also have partnerships and relationships with some of our siblings, for lack of a better description. Yeah. As an example, like our sales and marketing team helps to support Outrigger and Under Canvas. But we are, I would say, sort of 95% of our focus is on the properties that are sort of within our direct purview and ownership structure.
Got it. Makes sense. So at your time as head of hospitality for KSL Capital Partners, what are some of the acquisitions that you are personally most proud of?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm fortunate to have a lot to think about there, but the one that comes immediately to mind is what we refer to as the Monarch Beach Resort. It's now called the Waldorf Astoria in Laguna Niguel, California. So when we purchased that property in 2015, I think it was 2015, it was a St. Regis, with coming to the end of its sort of brand partnership. And so we took that property independent, and then had to completely launch a new positioning, new marketing, new everything. This is an example of those really complicated resorts where it had, golf course, spa, membership, multiple restaurants, beach club, down directly on the water. And so it was one of my favorites because of the complexity of it and the before and after. So we did a better part of a $70 million renovation, launched whole new positioning in the marketplace, really changed the focus of the asset to bring it more leisure and less group or less corporate. We brought in signature restaurant from Michael Mina. We completely reinvigorated the spa and co-branded that with Miraval Resorts, which at the time KSL also owned, which had a very strong wellness positioning, dramatically improved the membership, caliber of the golf. And we're fortunate enough to have a very successful exit. Timing worked out. It was shortly before COVID. But it was just, it was so much fun. The team we put together there was incredible. Many of them we still work with, even though we sold that hotel many years ago. I guess the only other one or the other one I'll mention, the first hotel that we bought in Western Europe, we bought in just outside of Birmingham, England. It's called the Belfry. If any of your listeners are big into golf, they'll recognize this as the 4-time host of the Ryder Cup. Okay. So the history of this place was just unbelievable. And we had an opportunity to take what had been in sort of a dysfunctional family ownership structure, unlock that by putting in new capital, renovation, repositioning, or really tried to bring back glory days of their former self when it comes to the golf positioning in the marketplace. And I'm not much of a golfer, but you couldn't help but appreciate the history there. And it was just really cool. One of the things that you love about hospitality, it's just where else do you get to do fun things like that?
Exactly.
That was my day, right? It was thinking about that on the creative side, thinking about that from the leadership side, and then of course thinking about it from the financial side, and getting to touch all three all the time was just really fun.
Yeah. And such a diversified group of places that you guys get to operate in, which is a lot of fun, So
It really is.
what's your ultimate goal for Peregrine? Like, how would you define a successful integration of KSL Resorts in Mission Hill? It's obviously still fresh. We're just, almost midway through 2025, and it's relatively new. So what would you say, once you've, how would you define hitting your stride there? What's that look like?
Yeah. We're on our way, I think. So we've been sort of in our new form for the better part of a year. We've hired up a lot of people. At the end of the day, our entire organization is singularly focused on what we call our true north is our hotel portfolio performance. So, getting to the point where we can confidently say that we have industry-leading financial results in our hotels is absolutely job one. How we get there is where I think we have a chance to differentiate because, as you know as well as anyone, there really isn't anything truly proprietary about running hotels, right? I have no patent. I have no, unique technology that my competitors can't also buy. And so it ultimately comes down to the people you put on the property and the people you bring into corporate to support those individuals. And I think that we're on our way to creating something special there, which becomes enduring over time. And so if we do it right, we will end up being the place where the best want to go to work. Every industry, every sport, everything has versions of this, right? And so our audacious aspiration is to become that in hospitality. So if we do it right, we'll have the best GMs and the happiest housekeepers in the industry, right? And they in turn will deliver amazing experiences for our guests, which of course will then flow to the bottom of that P&L that is so important to us.
Yeah. Happy people, happy guests, happy financials.
Exactly right.
And everybody was happy then.
Yeah. And if you'll forgive the self-plug, we just got named one of Denver's best places to work.
I love it.
Which we were particularly proud of because in the middle of all the change that we had in the last 12 months, that's normally a time when your engagement would drop, right? Yeah. Employees get confused, they get nervous, they've got a new boss. What does this mean? Where are we going? And we had all that for sure. There was real chaos, absolutely. But despite that, we were able to, recruit, maintain engagement, and just something we're proud of.
Fabulous. It's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Of course. What are some of the we talked about acquisitions that you made on the KSL Capital side, but in terms of Peregrine, what are some of the new management agreements and or acquisitions that you've recently brought on that are kind of fun for our listeners?
Yeah. So the biggest change there from in terms of new and growth would be, frankly, it's that transition of the 33 smaller hotels that we owned but didn't yet manage. So we transitioned 33 hotels onto the Peregrine platform in 7 months. Our accounting and technology teams want to kill me, but we managed to get that done. So we feel really proud of that. We have 2 luxury boutique hotels in our pipeline. One I think I'll be excited to be in a position to announce here in about 60 to 90 days. Another one hopefully shortly thereafter. Right. So we are now really switching into growth mode and actively looking for new deals. And so I hope to have a more robust answer on that one for you soon. As I'm sure you know, the transaction volume's not really been that high lately. Yeah. And what's out there tends to be a pretty healthy bid-ask spread. So we're getting more active, we're bidding, but we're just not seeing enough movement. And so, one of the things that the current environment sometimes creates, right, economic uncertainty and turbulence makes it hard to be the operator of hotels for sure. And we can certainly talk about that, but it sometimes makes it better to be on the investment side of the business, when you have the benefit of a lot of dry powder, which we do. And so we're excited to see what that turns up for us.
That's great. What are you seeing overall in the industry with a bit of general economic kind of macro uncertainty and angst? How does your summer look? What are you guys doing differently, if anything? Have you seen sort of any changes to booking window or cancellations? Just kind of curious, since you mentioned that, if there was any sort of changes that you're seeing that we might want our listeners to know about.
Yeah, it's interesting. Whenever there's turbulence, all of the media goes into sort of panic mode and starts to talk about, no one's going to go to hotels anymore or whatever. And it's just, history would indicate this is fundamentally incorrect. Yeah. They said this after 9/11, global financial crisis, COVID, And, and here we are. And the dips, sometimes are a little painful in the short term, but the numbers come back relatively quickly. What's interesting is that, I think it's somewhere in the vicinity of 70 or 80% of the revenue that goes into hospitality, particularly at the luxury end, is leisure driven, as opposed to corporate. And so, and the majority of that is driven by the top 15% of households. And so that population, sort of the mass affluent and above, which is the segment that we tend to focus on, they're college educated, they've got stability in their careers, they tend to have savings and investments. And so they continue to prioritize travel and experiences. And so while they may reduce their travel, they may reduce it by a room night, whatever, they still go because that's a key priority for them from a value perspective relative to spending time with friends and family.
Totally.
And so we intentionally target those types of hotels and resorts, and then we're the beneficiary of that because it's just fundamentally more resilient.
Totally.
And so, we've seen the movie before, and we're long-term, highly committed to the space, and travel and leisure continues to outpace GDP growth, not only in the U.S. but globally. And so we love investing behind that trend.
Yeah, totally. Outside the U.S., do you see any markets in specific that are very interesting to you guys? Middle East, Europe, Asia, certain countries you see?
To be candid, it's not been a focus area of mine.
Okay.
We are at this point, sort of contiguous 48 is kind of our focus. I'd be excited down the road, sort of at Peregrine 2.0, if you will, to get more into Mexico and Latin America, but no immediate plans for that.
Got it. Makes sense. We have some mutual partners here at AZDS. We have Under Canvas, Illume. We helped launch Serena Hotels, which was a client of ours, Luis, for a long time. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about the Under Canvas model? It's quite interesting, and I think especially timely because we're coming into summer and guests are probably looking forward to their summer vacations, and I'm sure some of them are still looking to book, and let's give a little plug to them. I figure it would be interesting to hear about it.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to. Under Canvas is really special. And I am, despite living in Colorado, I would not qualify as an outdoorsman by any means. But what's really great about their space, and I'm to some extent their target customer, right? So I'm happy to go on a hike, happy to do all outdoor biking, whatever, all these outdoor activities. But at the end of the day, I want a hot shower, a good meal, and a nice, comfortable bed. And so these are sort of the glamping tents. If you haven't been in one of them, you should check them out. The pictures are incredible. But where their magic is that they get their locations, in or immediately adjacent to these national parks. And so you're not camping sort of roadside and then having to drive 20 or 30 minutes to get to the nature. You are in the nature. And so when you wake up in the morning, you're surrounded by the natural beauty of the place, but you've had a great night's sleep in your comfortable bed. You're using running water to brush your teeth or whatever your morning routine. And then you're invigorated, ready for the day. Some of them have really compelling food and beverage offerings as well. It's scaled down, it's basic, just given the environment, but that feels very authentic in the place you're at. The amenities and activities surrounding it are great, whether you're there, with friends, significant other. It's wonderful for families. And so it's pretty magical. And the receptivity to the model has been great. Quick shout out to Matt Gagan, their CEO, who's really taken them to a new level. Now, he is an outdoorsman, hardcore for sure. But yeah, it's pretty magical. And I've had a chance to go to them and experience them firsthand, and can't say enough about it. It's really wonderful.
Is there a particular camp that your favorite of the ones you've visited so far?
Oh, geez, the one by Mount Rushmore, I thought was pretty spectacular. The views that they have this incredible sort of observation deck where you can have your morning coffee or your evening wine or whatever, and you're just looking out over this unbelievable vista all the way to the actual Mount Rushmore, and you can see it, and in the distance, it's and you're just completely surrounded by the trees and the forest, and it's wonderful.
That's amazing. Yeah, it was fun because when we helped create the Illume website, it was just a site in Moab, and so Matt and May came into our office here where you're sitting,
great.
right? And we talked all about it, and we had a sketch artist working on sketches because there was, of course, no photos yet. And what I found most interesting, and I think the website's beautiful, it's amazing, but I think what I found most interesting is getting water to those locations. Getting plumbing. I mean,
the infrastructure requirements are significant.
That was the fascinating part, right? It's like it's one thing to have the canvas right over your head. That's one thing, but the fact that you're getting water there and power,
and they're doing it in an incredibly environmentally friendly way as well, right? Which of course is critical and something that team feels personally very passionate about. Yeah, it's no
Totally.
small feat. And then they close them. They have to collapse the whole thing down at the end of the season.
Right.
And then store it and then rebuild it back up, as soon as sort of mud season finishes or whatever.
Yeah.
It's an impressive team.
That's amazing. Something else we like to cover here at Luxury Travel Innovators is AI. It's obviously such a big topic. It's changing the way we do things, of course, for guests and in technology, but also on the hospitality side in operations and other things. We see it going and really dynamically changing, really, our lives as we know it. What's your approach and thoughts on AI at Peregrine?
Yeah, you know what? God, you can't get through a conversation about our industry and innovation without this coming up, right? It is, it's certainly a very popular topic, and our view is that we're going to sort of crawl, walk, run, right? So we're going to be fast follower as opposed to a true innovator. But what we like about it is we think that this will allow us to be smarter about how we interface with our guests, certainly on the back office, sort of how we run our businesses efficiently. But if we do it right as an industry, it will enable us to deliver more of the magic, right? The backside and the whiz-waz is interesting, right, intellectually. But if we do it right, just given the industry that we're in, it should make it easier and better for us to deliver that personal, curated experience to our guests, because we can never lose sight of the fact that the personal touch, that direct service is what defines service at any level, especially at the luxury level. And so I think we have to be careful not to fall back on it as the end-all be-all,
Totally.
because then you end up with a sterile experience, even if it's super efficient or whatever. And that's not ultimately what people want. They want to have the connection. And so if we use the technology correctly, it should enable us to do that better.
Totally.
We actually just hired a new chief information officer, Jeff Knowlton, who will be figuring this out for us. So you won't be relying on me. But we're excited about where that goes. And like I said, if we do it right, it'll pull through to the guest. And that's where, and that'll be, in my opinion, the indicator of our success or lack thereof.
Totally agree. Well, one of our signatures at Luxury Travel Innovators is kind of finishing with 3 rapid fire questions.
Oh boy. Okay.
So that's what I'm gonna complete the interview with. What personal travel are you most excited about next?
Great question. So we have 3 teenage daughters, and so we're excited to be sort of in the perfect zone where they can do everything we can do, and we can all do it together at a pretty fun level. So we're looking at a trip to Italy in the fall,
Nice.
where we're going to do a fair amount of biking, obviously active sightseeing as well. My wife and I undoubtedly will enjoy the wine, but to be able to kind of do that together and really explore a country. I've been there a few times. My kids have not, so that'll be something we're looking forward to. And although Boston is a place I'm very familiar with, having lived there, our oldest daughter's going to Boston College, so we're incredibly excited about our trip there in August, where we get to drop her off.
Oh, man.
First kid to go to school, so that'll be a tearjerker, but we're excited.
Sounds great. Yeah, Italy sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Everyone will love it.
That'll be fun.
The Luxury Travel Innovators is all about innovation and moving forward. And so my second question is, what do you miss about the glamorous days of travel in the past? I've told people it's things like the Ritz-Carlton Lion stamped ashtrays. It's first class the way they used to do it, or air travel in general the way it used to be. But what do you miss? What's the nostalgic element that you would say doesn't exist today anymore?
Yeah, I guess 2 things come to mind for me there. It's certainly air travel is far from glamorous, and all the road warriors with us here would know that for sure. But I think that travel used to be special, and so people dressed up, right? And it was a big deal to go out to restaurants. And now sometimes I find myself at an anniversary dinner with my wife, and I'm sitting next to someone in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and it's kind of annoying. Like, get it together, dude. So that part for me for sure, and I'm certainly old school in that way. But one of the things I think made our industry so glamorous and so interesting was we had these iconic, visionary, legendary leaders who were, the Conrads Hiltons and the J. Willard Marriotts and Izzy Sharp and all that, who were like really putting their own individual signature on the assets. They were building them. They had the vision. They pulled it through, and they made them special. And now it's more homogenized. And there's a business rationale for that, of course, but it makes it a little bit harder to get special.
Yeah.
And somehow we have to find our way back to that.
That's a really good one. I love that. I've heard a lot about experiential travel and time slowing down. I haven't heard that yet. I love that. That was a great answer.
Thank you.
Of course. And of course, we have to end with innovation because that's what the podcast is all about. So what innovation in travel doesn't exist today that you think is missing? And it doesn't have to be technology. It could just be an innovation or a change. What would you say?
Yeah, that one's tough. I'm not the most innovative guy in the world. So I'm probably the least innovative person you've ever had on this show.
No.
But a couple things come to mind for me. The particularly when you think about leisure travel at the luxury level, like there's a moment when your vacation begins, right? It's not the moment you arrive at the hotel, but it's this moment when the schlep is over and you have the first cocktail by the pool or on the beach or the whatever. And which is amazing, right? That's a signature moment in that experience. But everything that leads up to that isn't awesome. And this is broader than hospitality or hotel specific, but that process is long and it's arduous and it's uncomfortable. And for those who aren't always on a private plane or whatever, like there's got to be a way to make that easier and better. And certain hotel companies or individual hotels, I think, have done a good job of extending earlier into the experience their touch. So they reach back into the transportation or whatever, like the Grand Hotel Mackinac Island, like they're now running the ferries that bring you over to make that experience better. And so like there are examples of that where I think we can do more. And again, that's not technology.
No.
That's just taking the magic or the art of service and pulling it forward into the experience earlier. And I guess the only other one that comes to mind, and it's come up a lot in our industry, certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, is we as an industry, I think, need to do a better job of creating a more compelling experience for our line level employees. They're the hardest working people. The economics of those roles are not great. But there are still things that we as an industry should be doing to make that experience better and to take advantage of the fact that there is a ladder that they can climb. Right. I mean, we mentioned strategic earlier. The CEO and the COO of that publicly traded luxury hotel REIT had high school educations and started out working in entry-level jobs in hotels. And that story needs to be told more, and those opportunities need to be replicated more. And I think if we do that, it'd be a great service, obviously, to those individuals, but to our industry in general.
You're so right. That's a very good answer as well. That's
thank you.
Well, it's seeing it that anything is truly possible in hospitality. It's kind of
It is. I mean, it's wonderful to be in a place where, in particular, a lot of people, from other countries or with minimal education who come into our industry. And if they're, what we talk about when we're recruiting, we want people honest, smart, and hungry.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're of good character, if you're street smart, you're hardworking, and you get after it, like we can create a path for you to really improve the economic situation for you personally, and as a result, downstream your family as well. Those opportunities were given to my grandparents, and as a result, my brothers and I all have graduate degrees. Like that, we want to create for others, and we need to find a way to pay it forward.
Fantastic, Greg. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
This was great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching this episode of Luxury Travel Innovators. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. See you next time.